So, Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, aka Castlevania, not Castlevania, aka just Castlevania with extra steps. You probably already have a pretty solid idea about Bloodstained, seeing as it has been out on various platforms since 2019, before finally making its way to mobile devices this December. It's for this reason that I'll start this review with a focus on how Bloodstained performs as a mobile port, and honestly, the short of it, it's not so great. But before I go into why Bloodstained isn't a really good port of a very good game, I'd like to start with the little positives first. For one, the price tag. Bloodstained on mobile is at least $30 cheaper than on any other platform, with the mobile version coming in at $10 compared to $40 on Nintendo, PlayStation and Microsoft's gaming consoles. That is 75% reduction in its price tag without any missing content. That's massive. Also, on Bloodstained Play Store page, there's a listing for in-app purchases, and seeing that this is published by NetEase on mobile, I know that might have a lot of people worried. In-app purchases and NetEase mixed together, that might not leave you at ease. But I've played through over 20 hours of Bloodstained, completing over 98% of its map, getting all 3 endings, unlocking the new Game Plus content, and I've not seen a single microtransaction. There's none in sight whatsoever, so my best guess is they are just placeholders for future DLCs, hopefully. Another important positive I'd like to point, especially if you like me are coming from games like Genshin Impact, is Bloodstained didn't overheat my device at all and wasn't a battery drainer, so I could put in a decent amount of game time without having to charge my phone every 2 seconds or lugging a power pack everywhere I go, which was really nice, especially in this day and age of mobile gaming. Now, the negatives, of which there are many. First off, Bloodstained is locked to 30 FPS on mobile devices, which is a massive shame, especially when you consider that similar games like Dead Cells and Grim Valor can run at 120 FPS on mobile. I game on a Redmi Note 8 Pro, and even here, Dead Cells and Grim Valor are able to hit 60 FPS. Okay, say 30 FPS is still playable, at least for such a game as Bloodstained on mobile. But even then, it isn't a stable 30 frames per second by any means, with lots of stuttering that seems to get worse the more I progress in Bloodstained's map. Even changing graphics to the lowest setting didn't stop the stuttering. All this when you consider that Bloodstained wasn't in any way pushing my device in terms of getting it to heat up, just points to this being a poor port quality wise. And just to push this point further, Bloodstained also crashed quite a lot on my phone. At first it wasn't too bad and mostly happened after I lost and the game was reloading to my last save. But again, for whatever reason, the more I progressed in Bloodstained, the worse the crashes got. Now even crafting was a risk, and anytime the audio started to skip and stutter, I started to panic because I knew a crash was coming. There were also minor bugs like my character sometimes glitching and having spasms, and a minor audio glitch in one of the boss fights. Bloodstained mobile port really is just a poor port performance wise that needs to be fixed immediately, at least to a stable and crash free 30 FPS before we even start talking about higher frame rate options. Bloodstained is available on PlayStation 4 and 5 with these bad boys. It's also available on Microsoft Xbox Series and PC with these bad boys. Same on Nintendo Switch. And somehow, NetEase and AdPlay managed to mess up controller support on Bloodstained's mobile port. It almost feels like it should have been harder to get it wrong than right, but somehow they pulled it off. Bloodstained is actually fully playable with a gamepad, and I played through the entire game with my Epega. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if someone out there watching this is surprised that I'm using Bloodstained mobile and controllers in the same sentence, because AdPlay seem to do their best to hide it on mobile for whatever reason. You see, in any other game with gamepad support like Grim Valor or Dead Cells, when you connect the gamepad, the UI elements change and readjust to make it feel like you're playing on a mobile console with button mapping and guide options present. But Bloodstained is the exact opposite. I can't even use my controller to control menu options. They only work for gameplay and the map. Also, I had to spend the first 10 to 20 minutes of my playthrough figuring out what controller buttons do, because the game doesn't even tell you that say A is for jumping or stuff like that. You connect your gamepad and it won't even take away the on-screen controls. And also, for some weird reason, the left trigger button always temporarily froze my game till I used the on-screen shortcut buttons to unfreeze it. It's weird, feeling like the devs want us to use touch controls for a game like Bloodstained. And even at that, I've seen complaints on Reddit about input lag on touch controls just to make matters worse. Overall, as a mobile port, Bloodstained is a really poor port and feels like a case of getting what we pay for here. For that 75% discount over our console cousins, except maybe the Nintendo Switch, which seems to have most of the same issues. We get poor frame rates, lots of crashes, and poor controller implementation. And hopefully, the in-app purchase paid on the Play Store not only points to future content, but also bug fixes and quality of life updates in the not too distant future. I've talked about the bad parts of Bloodstained ports, but still I put in over 20 plus hours. For a reason, because underneath all its bugs, it's a very fun game. For someone like me whose experience with Metroidvania as a Grim Valor, which is more of a Metroidvania light, and Dead Cells, which focuses more on its roguelike elements, Bloodstained was a refreshing experience gameplay wise. But for those who've played the Castlevania classics like Symphony of the Night, a game upon which Dead Cells and Grim Valor were based on before branching out to do their own thing, Bloodstained will feel like a Crash Bandicoot 4 to the Crash series, and is very much a spiritual successor to the 2D Castlevania games, but with Alucard as a chill librarian. The story of Bloodstained starts when some capitalist-type alchemists, desperate to do anything to keep their major source of revenue, decide to summon a castle of demons, and they wonder why people no longer wanted to patronize them. We play as Miriam, one of 2 remaining Shardbinders, whose powers are intricately linked to the old castle of monsters tearing apart humans, and along with the help of our mentor and good guy alchemist Johannes, and the church official and exorcist Dominic, among others, are trying to bring down the castle and send the demons back from whence they came. Overall, the story in Bloodstained is nothing special. It's decent and a good way to keep us the players going around with purpose. The fact that it's voice acted though is pretty nice and helps gives a personality to most of Bloodstained characters and a little bit of weight to the story. Plus, music throughout Bloodstained is also ranged from very good to epic. But what we are here for, as with most Castlevania games, is combat and exploration, and I'll start with combat and the mechanics surrounding it first. If like me your experience with 2D action games are games like Dead Cells and Grim Valor, then Bloodstained swordplay or gunplay or shoot play, whatever you want to call it, are going to feel kind of slow and lethargic very early into the game. But then the more shards you get and the more you add in Bloodstained RPG elements, the more that initial feeling will quickly wash away. At least it did for me. Shards are the demonic powers Miriam absorbs from monsters she takes down. And with about 120 different enemy types, there's eventually so many different shard powers of different types to play with, and upgrading each one also brings substantial changes, usefulness, and even eye candy to them. My favorite shard, Rigrastro Rama, summoned a single line of flames from the ground, and when I first got it. But by the end of the game, I could summon probably more than 7 lines of flames. Or like my familiar who did basic attacks at first, but after upgrading it, could summon waves of spears. What I'm getting at here is, by the time you start to play around with multiple shards of different types, sizes, adding it to combat, and all the different enemy types and unique boss fights, eventually make the Bloodstained combat a very fun gameplay experience, bar the frame rate stuttering. And talking about bosses, you might have to get used to the fact that they don't come with health bars. At first it was kind of off-putting for me, but eventually I started to notice the different tells and shifts in phases that kind of helped me know how far I'd come against them. I don't wish the option to turn health bars on or off had been given as a toggle in settings, or maybe as a shard. Not only are there shards though, there's also a bucket load of gears, accessories, weapons and consumables that all combine together to affect Miriam's various RPG parameters, because many of them also come with unique stats and bonuses. And everything can be bought or crafted, which in a way adds to the replayability of Bloodstained. Even after 20 plus hours, there are still gears and accessories I've yet to unlock, lots of shards not upgraded to their full potential, which is why Bloodstained has like 2 new game plus levels, with the first unlocking hard difficulty and the second nightmare difficulty. And anyone who wants to get and upgrade everything in Bloodstained will definitely welcome the added difficulty of the new game plus mode. I will say though, my one disappointment with the gear system though are dresses. Unlike accessories and arts that change Miriam's appearance, dresses just stay the same. Only one dress out of Lord knows how many changed Miriam's appearance, and honestly it just seemed like the only part of the gear system that's a little undercooked, even though it is only just a visual thing and doesn't affect gameplay in any way or form. Exploration has always been a big part of the Castlevania series. Sorry, I mean Metroidvania games. You slowly but surely fill out the map, find areas that can't be accessed yet, play some more till you find a shard or a gear that then opens up the possibility of exploring new areas till you eventually fill up the map. It's a tried and proven formula that's still going strong after all these years. In terms of exploring, Bloodstained doesn't hold our hands in any way, with only subtle clues dropped by Zangetsu here and there. For the most part, it was fun figuring things out by myself, getting a new ability or item and realizing it can help me get to previously unreachable areas was also pretty fun, until the few moments when it wasn't. Though it didn't happen often, but there were like 2 or 3 times during my entire playthrough where I was just lost and confused for hours, not knowing where to go or what to do next. And these moments were really frustrating. But for the most part, exploring, going around collecting shards, fighting new demons regularly, finding hidden rooms, loot, boss rooms, and even multiple endings make those few moments of frustration worth it. Overall, if we were to look at Bloodstained, the game, it would honestly be an 8.5, heck even a 9/10 game on mobile. It is hitting most of the selling points of a Metroidvania or Castlevania styled game with few weaknesses. But when we look at Bloodstained, the mobile port, that easily drops to a 6 out of 10. And if this was an ACG style review, my final verdict would be wait for an update. Okay guys, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Tied out.
I need more blood.